Do you ever feel like you've been doing everything right at work, showing up on time, meeting deadlines, getting good feedback, but somehow you keep getting overlooked when real opportunities come up? Like, you're trusted, but not promoted, appreciated, but not advancing, valued, but not seen as a leader. If that hits home, you're not alone. I can't tell you how many smart, capable adults I've spoken to in their 30s and 40s who feel stuck in exactly this spot. You're not failing, you're not slacking, but it's like there's an invisible ceiling above you. And the more you try to push through it by working harder, the more frustrating it becomes. But here's the truth most of us never hear early in our careers. The next big leap forward doesn't usually come from being technically excellent or hyper-efficient. It comes from something more subtle, more human. It comes from the soft skills, the things they don't always teach in school or put on job descriptions, but the things that quietly separate people who just do the job from those who end up leading the team. And by the time you hit your late 30s or early 40s, if you haven't learned these soft skills, or at least started to master them, it becomes harder to shift how others perceive you. Because people will have already filed you into a category: reliable, solid, dependable, but maybe not influential. And that perception is hard to change later on. So in this video, I want to have a real honest conversation with you. Not as some expert talking down, but as someone who's had to learn these lessons the long way. I'm going to walk you through 5 soft skills that can completely transform how you're seen at work, in your relationships, even in the way you carry yourself through life. These are the things that helped me stop feeling stuck and finally step into rooms I never thought I belonged in. And I want to start with one that changed everything for me: emotional self-awareness. Emotional self-awareness, the foundation of leadership. It might sound soft, even fluffy, but I'll tell you right now, if you don't understand what's going on inside you, your emotions will manage you more than you manage them. Think about it. Have you ever snapped at someone in a meeting and immediately regretted it? Or gotten passive-aggressive with a coworker without really knowing why? Or walked away from a conversation feeling off, but couldn't quite name what triggered you? That's what happens when emotional awareness is low. You end up reacting instead of responding. You leak stress, frustration, or insecurity in ways that quietly affect how people trust you or want to follow you. Leaders, real ones, not just people with titles, are able to stay grounded in hard conversations. They know how to pause, check in with themselves, and ask, what am I really feeling right now? And what's the most useful way to respond here? I had to learn that skill through a pretty rough experience. A few years ago, I was working under a manager who constantly made me feel invisible. Every time I'd pitch an idea, he'd either ignore it or repeat it later like it was his. I was angry, frustrated, even questioning if I was in the right field. But I didn't say anything until one day I just exploded in a meeting, totally out of character for me. And guess what? Nobody remembered why I was upset. They just remembered how I reacted. That was a turning point. I realized if I didn't learn to process my emotions before they took over, I'd never be taken seriously. So I started journaling for 5 minutes before important meetings. I paused more before responding. I learned to name my emotions without shame. I'm feeling overlooked, I'm feeling disrespected, and choose my next move from a place of clarity, not reactivity. It didn't make the stress go away, but it gave me power over how I handled it. And that's a kind of leadership no one can teach you in a workshop. Second soft skill, presence. Not just what you say, but how you show up. The next shift happened when I realized something else. Leadership isn't just about what you say. It's about how you make people feel when you walk into a room. That's called presence. And it's one of those things that's hard to describe, but you know it when you feel it. Some people just walk in and you pay attention, not because they're loud or dominating, but because they're grounded, calm, clear. They listen before they speak. They make you feel like what you're saying matters, and you naturally trust them more. That's presence, and it's not some magic personality trait. It's a skill you can actually build. I used to walk into meetings over-prepared on paper, but under-connected emotionally. I was so focused on having the right answer that I forgot to just be present, to look someone in the eye, to slow down, to speak from the gut, not just the script. So I started working on it. I practiced silence. I asked more questions than I answered. I stopped trying to be the smartest person in the room and started trying to be the most anchored person instead. Over time, people began turning to me, not just for ideas, but for perspective, for calm, for steadiness. And that shift in energy, it mattered more than all the late-night slide decks I'd ever put together. You don't need to change your personality to have presence. You just need to be fully there and let people feel your attention. It's amazing what can shift when you stop trying to impress and start trying to connect. You know what's funny? The more I worked on being present instead of proving myself, the more people actually started to listen. It's like the less I needed to be right, the more I became someone they trusted. And that opened the door to something else I had to learn, something I resisted for years, even though I didn't realize I was doing it. It's the skill of listening without fixing. This one hits especially hard for high achievers, people who are used to solving problems, getting things done, making decisions. If you're a manager, a parent, or even just someone your friends come to for advice, you probably have this instinct to jump in and fix it the moment someone starts talking about a problem. I used to do that all the time. At work, someone on my team would come to me stressed about a deadline or a conflict. And before they even finished explaining, I was already offering solutions. I thought I was being helpful, efficient, action-oriented. But over time, I started noticing something. People weren't opening up to me as much. They'd come for instructions, not insight. They didn't really feel heard, because they weren't. I was solving what I thought the problem was, instead of understanding what they were actually experiencing. And when I started slowing down, really listening, asking better questions instead of jumping to answers, I realized something powerful. Most people already have part of the answer inside them. They just need space to speak it out loud. They need someone to hold space, not always fill it. That shift changed how I managed people. It changed how I supported my friends. Honestly, it even changed how I talked to my partner at home. I stopped trying to be the fixer and started being the person who creates clarity through listening. And here's the surprising part. When you lead with curiosity, you earn more influence. People start seeing you as someone who understands them, not just someone who instructs them. And that's the kind of leadership people choose to follow. Now, speaking of curiosity, that leads me right into the fourth skill I want to talk about. One that's harder to measure, but crucial if you want to lead well and grow in any direction. That's adaptability. I'm not talking about just being flexible or open-minded on the surface. I mean the deep kind of adaptability that lets you take a hard left when life or your career doesn't go according to plan without falling apart or clinging to what no longer fits. Let's be real. By the time you're in your 30s or 40s, you've probably realized that life rarely plays out in straight lines. Careers stall or shift, companies restructure, kids happen, health changes, your goals evolve, and if you're rigid in how you define success or identity, those changes will break you, or at least leave you bitter. I used to define myself by one version of success. Climb the ladder, prove myself, check the boxes. But when the job I'd worked years for suddenly disappeared in a company-wide reorg, I panicked. I felt lost, like my whole sense of purpose vanished with the title. That moment forced me to get honest. Was I chasing a job or building a life? Was I willing to be someone new, or did I only know how to succeed in one very narrow lane? Learning to adapt meant I had to let go of outdated definitions of who I was. It meant asking different questions. What skills do I actually love using? What kind of work energizes me instead of drains me? What version of leadership fits the life I want now, not the life I imagined at 25? Adaptability isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's the strength to say, this isn't working anymore, and that doesn't mean I failed. It just means it's time to evolve. And the more I practiced that, the more I started attracting opportunities that actually fit me. I wasn't forcing my way into rooms where I didn't belong. I was growing into spaces where I could actually thrive. Which brings me to something deeply tied to all of this. A skill that, in my opinion, threads through every other one I've mentioned so far. That's self-regulation. It sounds clinical, I know, but it's really just the ability to stay centered, even when the world around you isn't. I don't mean suppressing your emotions or pretending everything's fine. I mean knowing how to ride the wave without drowning in it. Self-regulation is what keeps you grounded when a meeting goes sideways. It's what helps you respond to criticism with calm instead of defensiveness. It's what allows you to keep showing up for your goals even when motivation disappears for a while, which, let's be honest, it always does. I remember once being in a performance review where I got some feedback that completely caught me off guard. It wasn't harsh, but it hurt. I wanted to argue, to explain myself, to shift the narrative right there on the spot. But instead, I took a breath. I let the silence be uncomfortable. I asked for time to reflect, and I gave myself 24 hours before responding. That one pause, just not reacting in the moment, earned me more respect than anything I could have said defensively. It showed maturity, ownership, and when I came back, I could respond with clarity and thoughtfulness, not ego. That's what self-regulation looks like in real time. And honestly, it's not just helpful at work, it's life-changing in parenting, in marriage, even in how you talk to yourself when you're feeling discouraged. Because let's face it, in this stage of life, the pressures don't slow down. Work, family, finances, health, it's a lot. And no one's gonna come regulate your stress or emotions for you. That has to come from the inside out. And the better you get at managing your inner world, the more powerful, calm, and consistent your outer world becomes. It's strange, isn't it? The more we grow, the more we realize that leadership isn't about having all the answers. It's about having the awareness to ask the right questions, the presence to listen without needing to dominate, and the resilience to keep showing up even when things don't go to plan. And I get it. This isn't always what we're taught to value. Especially early in our careers, everything's about performance. Your degree, your productivity, your results. But once you've been out in the real world for a while, balancing work, maybe raising a family, managing stress, dealing with aging parents, trying to stay healthy and sane through it all, you start to realize something deeper. The people who move forward in life, who earn trust, who become the steady hand in the room, they aren't the loudest or the most talented on paper. They're the ones who can handle pressure without cracking, speak truth without ego, and connect with others without needing to control them. They've grown into something a lot of people never quite master: emotional maturity. That's the real currency of leadership, and that's what soft skills build, brick by brick. The truth is, mastering these soft skills isn't a checkbox on a career to-do list. It's a lifelong process. Some of us learn them through mentorship, others through trial and error, some through therapy, parenting, heartbreak, failure. They're forged in the small moments. A conversation you choose to approach with empathy instead of anger. A pause you take before reacting. A willingness to let go of who you thought you had to be. I remember a conversation I had with a mentor a few years ago. I was frustrated, feeling like I wasn't making the progress I wanted. I told him, I've done everything right. I've worked hard, learned the systems, hit my goals. Why am I not getting ahead? He paused and said something I'll never forget. You've built a solid resume, he said. Now build your reputation. That hit me hard, because he wasn't talking about achievements. He was talking about how I show up, how I make people feel in meetings, whether I bring calm or chaos, whether people trust me to not just do the job, but to lead in a way that's steady, fair, human. And that was the shift. I stopped trying to be impressive. I started trying to be impactful. Not by being someone I'm not, but by becoming more of who I already was. Just more aware, more present, more intentional. So maybe you're in a season where you feel like you're working hard, but not moving forward. Maybe you're tired of being the dependable one who's always there, but never the one who gets the recognition or the raise. Or maybe you're starting to feel the weight of being everything to everyone. At work, at home, and you don't know how long you can keep spinning all the plates. Wherever you are right now, I want you to know something. You're not behind. You're building something deeper. And every one of these soft skills, awareness, presence, listening, adaptability, regulation, these are tools that no one can take from you once you've built them. They don't expire with a job title. They don't disappear in a recession. They grow with you, and they show up for you, even when everything else feels uncertain. And if you've been feeling like no one sees the real you, the version of you that cares deeply, leads quietly, and works with integrity. I want to say this clearly. You don't need to be louder. You need to be more aligned, more intentional, more connected to the person you're becoming, not the version of success you were sold at 22. Leadership in your 30s and 40s looks different than it did in your 20s. It's less about climbing fast and more about growing steady. Less about being in charge and more about being trusted. Less about performing and more about becoming someone others can count on, even in hard seasons. So if no one's told you this yet today, you're allowed to lead your own way. You're allowed to grow slowly. You're allowed to change your mind. You're allowed to let go of who you thought you needed to be so you can become the kind of leader this world really needs. Grounded, human, and real. If anything in this conversation resonated with you, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. Which of these skills are you working on right now? Which one do you want to get better at this year? Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to read today. And if this video spoke to you, it would mean a lot if you hit the like button. It helps others find it. And if you want more content like this, real talk about career, life, personal growth, go ahead and subscribe. We're building a space here for thoughtful adults who are done with surface-level advice and ready for something deeper. Because your story isn't stuck. You're just getting started. And the best version of your leadership, it's already in you. You're just learning how to bring it to life. Thanks for watching, and keep going. You're doing better than you think.